You'll hear a lot of advice online about getting an agent, but you won't hear many stories about someone who lost their agent, and that's exactly what happened to me. It's a lot of writers' dreams to get an agent, and when I got mine, I couldn't believe my luck. It was one of the best things that had ever happened. I'd been dreaming about being a published author for as long as I could remember, and this seemed like a huge leap in the right direction. She was an amazing agent, still is. I still speak to her every now and again, but she is no longer my agent. So I'm going to try and unpack today what happened and see if you can take anything away from it. So I met my agent for the first time in London, and we ended that meeting with me saying, "I would love for you to be my agent if you'll have me," and she said, "Yes, of course," and we had a big hug. And then I went away and went home and told all my family and friends, and just waited for that contract to come through the post. And it didn't come through the post straight away. And I'm quite a paranoid person in general anyway, so I was sort of waiting for this contract to come through and sort of thinking, oh, it's not going to come. And I wouldn't normally do this, but a couple of weeks passed and I sort of asked by email, do you know when I'll receive the contract? And my agent said, "It'll be soon, I'm just in the middle of moving office." And I thought, okay, I didn't know that, that's fine, I'll be patient. And eventually it did come through. It's probably about 3 or 4 weeks before that came through. And the first line said something along the lines of, "I'm writing to confirm that I would like to be your agent," and in handwritten ink above that sentence it said really. So I'm writing to confirm that I'd really like to be your agent, and I thought that was a sweet touch. And one of my concerns when we agreed that this person would be my agent was that she hadn't published many kind of books with kind of supernatural elements, which this book did. And she'd even, when the contract arrived, she'd even posted a book about, it was an upcoming book that wasn't published yet, but that she was representing, and it had supernatural elements in it. And everything suggested that she was trying to put my mind at rest, and that was much appreciated. And a few more weeks passed, and she said, "Would you like to come to London again for another chat, see my new office?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And I went down, and she sort of said, "I think the book needs a bit more work," which I was a little bit surprised about, but not, I wasn't overly shocked about. I know that, no book is perfect, and every book can be improved, and that was fine, and we sort of spoke about how it might be improved and things like that. And it was a good meeting, and I went away and made some changes and sent it back. And a few more weeks passed, and my agent said again, "Would you like to come to London again? We need another chat about the book." And at this point I'm sort of getting a little bit tense, only because her language has changed slightly. There's a little note of concern in there, and as I say, I'm quite a paranoid person, so I always think the worst. I always thought, she's gonna abandon this, it's too much work, the book's not ready. And of course all my family and friends would say, "You're just being silly, of course that's not going to happen, you'll be fine, go to London, have a good chat and sort the book out." And I went, and this time she'd employed an editor to have a look at the book and to make lots of notes. And basically give a whole kind of analysis of the book. And alarm bells were sort of ringing. I really appreciated that my agent had gone above and beyond to sort out that editorial advice, but I thought I don't know how normal this is. And again, there was that sort of note of concern, like almost like this is possibly the last chance, and if we don't sort this out now, we might have to abandon this. So I went away again, and by this point it's probably about maybe 3 months since I received my first contract, or the only contract, and signed it and sent it off. And again, I sort of made more changes, and I felt like the book was getting better each time. I was really happy with my changes. Having said that, I was pretty happy with the first version that I ever sent to her. All the while completely open to making improvements and changes, even big changes. But again, I sent it off, and a couple of weeks later got that dreaded email, please come to London so we can have another chat. And I'm feeling really anxious about this one. It doesn't feel right. And I'm sort of in two minds at this point. It could be that I'm being completely paranoid and everything's fine. My agent is willing to work on this book until it's perfect, no matter how long that takes. And maybe she's calling me to London to say, it's great, it's all good, we've done it. We're ready to send it off to publishers and ready to take the next step. And then the other side of my brain is saying, this is it, she's going to pull the plug now, and it's all over, and you're going to have to start back at square one, and you've basically lost your agent. And of course, all my friends and family, being the lovely people that they are, steered me towards the first one. It's all going to be fine, it's all good, stop panicking, stop being silly. And I went to London, and it was one of the hardest meetings I've ever had in my life. It more or less opened, well, it was very polite and happy until we sort of sat down and got down to it, and it more or less opened with the sentence, I think you know what I'm going to say. And I was like, oh no, please not that sentence, because there's two reasons I don't want to hear that sentence. One is because I actually don't know what you're about to say, and the suggestion that I do know what you're about to say makes me feel like I have no grip on what's been going on this whole time, and I've been deluding myself. And the other reason I don't want you to say that sentence is because it sounds like you're about to say that we're abandoning the book. And that is more or less what she said, and I do now understand why, and I did get a bit upset. There was also a lot of other stuff going on at the time, and I was really gutted about that. And she's always said from the beginning, you write beautifully, and if you've ever got another book, just send it and I will have a look, but this book is not right. And one of the worst things that she said was, this is the first time I've ever had to do this. And I was like, oh no, that's horrible, because that's, I've thought about that sentence ever since, and this was like 4 years ago. This is the first time she's ever had to do that. So that made me ask myself a lot of questions. One was, okay, was the book ever any good? I've been sitting here for the last couple of months thinking, great, I've actually done it. I've written a really good book, and finally it's been picked up. And now you're telling me this is the first time you've ever had to abandon a book. What did I do anything? That was the second thing. Did I do anything or say anything wrong to ruin this? I still don't fully know the answer to that. I don't believe I did. I don't believe I did. I was always polite and very open, and we had some great chats, and she's always been really nice to me and said that she'll root for me. So I don't think it was anything I said or did. But also the book didn't, she liked it at the beginning. We had a great meeting that first time, and she absolutely raved about the book, and it only got better from there. And if it didn't, then maybe we could have backtracked and started with the original draft and gone off on a different tangent. But that was really difficult to deal with. I was some kind of exception, and she'd clearly made some horrible mistake. That was really difficult. And it still hurts 4 years later. So what did I do after that? Well, I went off the rails a bit for a year or so. Quite sort of self-destructive and mean to people. But eventually I got back on the rails, and I got married and moved house, and I've got a very nice life. And I didn't write for about 2 years, and then this year, 2020, the big year, the pandemic year, I wrote another book. And I didn't write it while I was in furlough or lockdown or anything like that. However, I did write it really quickly. It took 4 months to write from start to finish. And that could be because it's a big pile of rubbish, but I really don't believe it is. I think it's the best thing I've ever written, and I think part of the reason it took 4 months is because I'd been stewing on that story for a long time. And I sent it. The first person I sent it to was my agent, my old agent, who technically sort of still is my agent. I signed the contract, and she always said she'd be happy to read anything that I sent. So I sent it, and I sort of that felt good, because it was like, okay, it didn't work out with the other book, but that's still a massive foot in the door. That's still an agent who's there and knows me, knows my name, knows my work, likes my style of writing, and is there ready and waiting to receive another manuscript. So swallow your pride, write another book, send it off. And she came back and she said, I love it, let's go, this is the one. Except that isn't what she said. I would love to say that is what she said. Sorry, it's not. No. She, again, understandably, she said it wasn't for her, and it was quite a short email. She sort of said, she didn't say anything about my style of writing this time or how beautiful it was. There was none of that. It just sort of said it's not for me. And I'm taking on fewer and fewer clients these days, but I will still be rooting for you from the sidelines. So that was that, and I've now sent that manuscript off to lots of other agents in the hope that they will come back, and if they don't, I'll self-publish it. So what have I learnt from all this? Well, it's those sorts of hard lessons that don't really feel like lessons, they just feel like pain until you need them, and then they sort of come back as lessons. One of the first things I learned is to, and this is going to sound really negative, but just to not get your hopes up. When you send something out, of course you can hope in the back of your mind that someone's going to love it, but don't be actively sitting there all excited and ready for someone to love it, because it might not happen. And even if this is number 2, even if you get that foot in the door and things are looking great, it can still go wrong. It's not finished until the book is on the shelf, and even then people might hate it. These lessons are they're not fun ones, but they're lessons nonetheless. What else did I learn? I learned not to put all your eggs in one basket. I think for a long time, because that agent was such a big foot in the door, I sort of felt like I would never get that again. So I rested all my eggs in that basket and never really bothered to branch out. And even that particular book that I wrote was all my eggs in one basket, because I thought that would be the best thing that I've ever written, whereas actually now, this year, this new one I think is the best thing I've ever written. And that's not boasting, it's just you sort of know. Another thing that I've learned is to not take things personally and to not give up. Just keep trying. That's all you can do. Just keep sending it out, keep writing, and if no one takes that one on, write another one, send it out. And there's no point in doing that unless you enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it, because then even if everybody says no, you enjoyed it and you've got this thing at the end of it that you're still really proud of. And maybe one day, when one of your other ones gets published, one of the ones you haven't written yet, you can go back to those other ones, and so that nothing's wasted. And every book that you write is experience for the next one as well. It was really tough. I've wanted to be a successful writer all my life. Obviously, what do I mean by success? That's subjective, but for me it meant getting published, getting on the bookshelves, doing kind of even book tours and interviews and that kind of thing. I really still want all that, because I'm so vain. And to get... Here's the thing. When you receive a rejection email, okay, that's hard, but it's just a rejection email. You can move on. But it felt like I was so close. I'd signed the contract. I'd secured the agent. I'd done it. It was all gold. And then to get that close to this thing that you've wanted all your life, and for it to just kind of be blown apart and have to start back at square one for reasons that you'll never fully understand, was a nightmare. Hopefully that'll never happen to you. I'm sure it won't, because apparently this isn't something that happens very often. But hopefully the lessons that I learnt from it, you can learn from as well. And if you've got any questions about this experience, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And don't forget to check out my other video, which tells you how I got that agent in the first place, and how I'll use those same methods to try and get my next one as well. Because I'm not giving up, and I'm having fun. Cheers. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, think about leaving a like. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. I make lots of videos like this, so think about subscribing as well and hitting that bell icon. And if you've got any writing questions at all, just pop them in the comments and I'll see if I can answer them. Cheers. Do you want to say anything?